Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, aka Caliban, and my gruff candor routine has no pause button. Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
It is great to have you here. It's great to be here on, it's Thursday. It must be Thursday. We're here.
Mm-hmm. Star Trek Thursday.
That's what it's been. How could I forget? For so long. For so long now, that's when Star Trek happens. Thank God. How have you been?
Good. I've been off since 6:38 this morning.
Wow.
And a new Taylor Swift album comes out at midnight.
Oh my God.
I'd like to stay up to listen to it. Big day.
Big
day for annoying people.
Big
so
day.
I will be awake at midnight.
Is this what it is now? Is the release of every Taylor Swift album also come with an ARG where the fans have to run around in real time and try to find secrets and clues? Or is that did they put that on themselves?
You'd think the way that people act, you'd think that's what it's like. For me, I will be comfortably in my living room with a glass of wine.
Yeah, that's smart.
My boyfriend will be dead asleep.
Yeah. That's smart. Yeah, I like that. Well, we all have our particular peccadillos. My peccadillo is video games, and recently it's been virtual reality video games because I got one of those, dorky headsets. And
do you have Skyrim?
I don't want to. They pull me back in. I'm this close to doing it, but I've spent years playing Skyrim already in Pancake. But maybe I'll do it. We'll see. You have to.
But you can play with the new. After the anniversary, have you played on like survival mode?
No.
You have to play it again.
Okay.
It makes the game so much harder. It's way different. Well,
Okay.
if you love Skyrim,
I like it.
You've already spent hours and hours playing Skyrim, then you'd like it. I love it. It's different, and I think there's some different, some new missions and stuff too.
Okay, and you have to do a lot of mods on the VR to make it really VR and not just to use your hands and everything. But anyway,
I see.
I've been playing this game called Asgard's Wrath 2, which is like the Halo of Facebook VR because it costs like $250 million and it's supported by Facebook and everything. And in the game, it's kind of like Skyrim. It's like a first person, Norse mythology themed thing. And you play a couple different main characters, and I don't really pay attention to how they sound. Like they have voices, they talk to people and stuff like that. You're not a voiceless protagonist. But I was playing this one character, and as I was playing, she's talking about what's going on in the world, and we're in, the Nine Realms. And so she's like, we must fight these fiends from Muspelheim. And I'm like, wait a minute. The way she said those words, is that? And I looked it up. Voiced by Sonequa Martin Green.
Shut up.
and I knew because of what we talked about last week, the way that she says things like poem. I knew, I know that voice. So it's crazy. So
that is so funny.
So then I started looking through the cast list, and I realized I'd already played some of these other characters, and they're voiced by the first person is voiced by Jacob Anderson, who played Grey Worm on Game of Thrones, and he's also in the Interview with the Vampire Show. The second character was played by Tessa Thompson. No introduction needed. And so I got through the Sonequa part, and then I got the new character, and I was like, okay, I got to hear this voice. Who's this voice going to be? First line this character says, I'm like, it's Forrest Whitaker. Forrest Whitaker is the voice of this character in the game, the ghost dog himself.
So is it only on VR, or can you play it on the computer?
It's only a VR game right now. Yeah. Exclusively on the MetaQuest headset. So I was like, whoa, they really cut some checks here for some actors. So yeah, anyway.
So is it fun? Do you have one of those things, one of those VR treadmills that keeps you in keeps you on spot?
No, I don't have a treadmill, and I don't have the thing that when you get shot, it actually hits you. I don't have any of that. But
that would be crazy.
Yeah, that's too much. But yeah, it's a fun game, and I was surprised to hear our girl Sonequa as a voice actress in it.
I love that you clocked her right away. I feel like I want to go back and watch her in The Walking Dead and see if that character also sounds like that.
Yeah, these walkers, like she says it weird. So I don't know if it's an accent or I don't know where she's
from. Where is she from? Yeah,
I got no idea. No idea. But anyway, all right. Let's talk about the news of the world of Star Trek, as we usually do at the start of the show. The big news in the world of Star Trek is, of course, that Martin Quinn will be continuing the role of Scotty on Strange New Worlds. You guys asked for it. You're going to get it. He's back on season 3. No, that is exciting, but that's not the big news. The big news is that Star Trek Strange New Worlds was renewed for a 4th season, and it was announced that Star Trek Lower Decks would end with its 5th season coming up in the fall of this year. So, Strange New Worlds, 2025 sometime. I'm guessing probably spring in 2025. Lower Decks ending this fall. Discovery, Lower Decks, 2024, the graveyard of Star Trek shows. All these Star Trek shows are ending. What do you think about the future of Star Trek and what's coming up?
Well, it's bizarre. I'm not surprised. I mean, I feel like I've talked before on the show about how I'm like, we're doing too much.
Well,
we're going to have to rein it in.
5 is the new 7 is the hashtag that's going around.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I was, I think, disappointed but not surprised by the news, if only because Lower Decks is so good that I feel like when a show has that level of quality, sometimes the creators are like, and before we run out of ideas, like we're calling it before it gets bad.
Yeah.
Although I'd be curious to know if that's the kind of decision that was made and if it wasn't made sort of by some higher ups. So I saw some people online sort of speculating about Mike McMahon's wording.
Interesting.
In the sort of statement that he posted, and whether or not there could be some sort of Prodigy-esque
pick up by like Netflix or some kind of deal.
But I mean, if they're just going to keep canceling Star Trek shows and they keep getting picked up by other networks, what are we doing?
Well, yeah. And we talked, I think, last week about how streaming is just in a free fall in terms of strategies by these different companies. Maybe it'd be worth it to them to let somebody else pay for it and have distribution for a while, but then sort of have the overall ownership of it. I don't know. People are kind of bullish. I was reading on there being another season of Prodigy, that maybe if Netflix sees success when it finally actually comes out here and gets a lot of streams, that they could renew it on Netflix. Yeah. So it's just so weird to me that, and I've read what you were talking about with Mike McMahon, but I've also read what he's been said in years past, and he acts like the show has always been on the bubble, and he's always telling the fans, like, keep saying you like it, because we could go at any time. I think 5 seasons is the new 7. It's respectable. They have nothing to be ashamed of. But
5 seasons of 10 episodes each.
Yeah.
Although does Lower Decks do more?
No, they do 10, don't they? They do 10. Don't quote me, but they do 10.
Me neither.
But it's so weird because I wouldn't imagine, obviously, animation show needs extra time to prepare because you've got to write, record, and then animate it. But it can't cost as much as a live action show, right? So why not have it around still? It's so well loved and presumably costs less than a live action show. I don't know. Maybe they're just looking to do new things and to move on. But having 2 shows end in 1 year is a little like, oh, you must have big plans.
Yeah, I mean, so what, we've got Starfleet Academy coming?
Yeah, in development, probably a long ways away. The 4th, let's see, that could 2026 probably. I think they're thinking that late next year we could get Strange New Worlds season, or probably early in 2026, the 4th season of Strange New Worlds. We have the 3rd season still. Bullish on Prodigy, but it's up to Netflix. And then, of course, the movie, Section 31, the movie. I was reading that Alice Kurtzman wants to make more streaming movies. Of course you want to make movies, Alex. Of course you do. But he was talking to Cinema Blend recently, a website, and talking about how he doesn't know if any Star Trek show will hit the 100-episode mark. And he wasn't saying that pessimistically. He was trying to compare the new model of TV to the old model of TV, where 100 episodes was the threshold for syndication and the mark of success for, a show, whether on network or syndication. And he said specifically, I'm going to quote him here. I love quoting the Kurtz. I won't do the voice. He says, quote, I think what's lovely about that is it's funny, his words, you can talk to old writers of old Trek series and they're like, his quote, man, there's a bunch of filler episodes in there. We're just trying to get to 22 a season, And we all know which of those episodes were filler. We know the ones that were truly stellar from the ones that felt like they were spinning their wheels. And so I think what 10 episodes a season forces you to do is really make sure that every story counts as much as it can possibly be. I like that. I like what that affords us now. And my question for Mr. Alex Kurtzman is, what's a filler episode? There's all this talk on the thing about like the bridge collapse, tragic, very, very terrible. But I saw a joke that was like, wow, the economy is so bad that everybody that was a submarine expert has had to become a bridge expert now. Everybody on the internet thinks they know everything about everything. And I don't know if I know everything about everything, but I've watched a lot of Star Trek and we've been doing this for a long time. And I'm not sure what people mean when they say filler episode. Everybody says filler episode. Aren't those the episodes that just give us exciting Star Trek and tell us more about our characters? Not every episode is part of finding a key or finding a clue or a secret or whatever. The Inner Light, people's favorite episode ever, was like a back nine episode that was like risky. And they left it till the end because they weren't sure they could pull it off or if it was worth doing, and now everyone remembers it. Yesterday's Enterprise, everybody's actual favorite episode, is a little oxbow that has nothing to do with anything. Now, everybody loved it so much that later on they tried to, force Tasha Yar back into the show as a Romulan character based off of that episode. But all these things used to just be, the one with ... And we liked it. And now that's filler. Unless we're heading towards something, some key to time or whatever the overarching metaplot is. It's filler? I don't agree with that.
I feel like it also it's used a lot more. The phrase is used a lot more now that we have like these 10 episode seasons where
but
like
they
you're
chose,
not allowed the episodic.
Right, but they chose to do that. They chose to make TV that way. Do you know what I mean? We could still have 22 or whatever. We could have 16, 17. We had that in the first season of Discovery. Like, they're the ones who, this isn't being forced on us. Like, they've chosen to make TV this way. And then they go, I think the way that we chose to make TV is the best way. Yeah, you feel that way. You chose to do that. And it's a money thing.
I also think both with filler episode and to a lesser extent with bottle episode, like people just like to pick an episode that they think is bad.
And they call it
and
filler.
Then be like, bottle episode, filler episode. And it's like, let's just have a little, like, fun.
Alexander Rozhenko taking a mud
God
bath.
forbid.
Taking a mud bath with Lwaxana Troi. That's a filler episode. That's filler. Yeah. But like David Ogden Stiers, falling in love with Lwaxana Troi and then having to, basically go back to his home planet and suicide himself because he turned 50. That's a filler episode, but yet it's a great episode. So I don't agree with that. But that's the way TV is now. So I don't know. I hope that they can, if they're going to keep this model, and they're going to, because that's what Paramount wants to pay for. I hope that they can find a way to make episodes have an individual punch and an impact, kind of like today's episode. Is today's episode a filler episode? They don't get any of the keys. Basically, they had an extra episode that doesn't involve the keys or anything like that. And so therefore, we just do an episode that spins its wheels and we learn about ourselves and we move on. So I think it's ironic that we're complaining about filler episodes when Discovery airs what is essentially a filler episode. In their words. I don't agree. I don't agree. But yeah. I just think it's a bunch of people who are all being interviewed. And it's not like I want them to like totally jam on their coworkers and their parent company, but it's propaganda. They're just telling you what they need you to hear to buy what they're selling. And I think their work should speak for itself. But that's it. Soapbox, set it on fire. Don't want to talk about it. We have to talk about this episode. And let's get into it. It's the 4th episode of the 5th season of Star Trek Discovery. And it's an episode titled Face the Strange. And we're here to break it down for you. But first, as always, a warning. We're setting a course for the spoiler zone listeners. So be warned. We're glad you decided to join us. But if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Face the Strange is, on the way to the next clue, the USS Discovery is sabotaged by a mysterious weapon, leaving Captain Burnham, Rayner, and Stamets as the only crew members who can possibly save the ship in time. This little play on words there. The episode was written by Sean Cochran, directed by Lee Rose, and we jump all over the shop in this episode, don't we? We go from 3191 to 2256, 2257, 2258, 3189, and 3218 or something like that. They said it was 30 years after the current events of season 5. A little trivia for this episode. We see Linus in this episode, played by David Benjamin Tomlinson. We first saw him in the second season premiere, if you remember, of Discovery. But the episode that he appears in, or this moment, is from the first season of the show. So he was there before. They talk about Lorca. Gosh, I really thought if we were ever gonna see him again, it was gonna be,
please, Jason Isaacs. Jason Isaacs, if you can hear me.
They would have teased that. They wouldn't have just dropped that, unfortunately. Yeah. And then, of course,
it would have been her going, Lorca?
Yeah, right. Well, there's one person I don't want to run into. Turbo lift doors open. It's him, right? But they did that with a little different thing, and we'll talk about that. And of course, the title of the episode is a reference to David Bowie's 1971 song, Changes. Don't make an old man sad. Bowie fan? David Bowie? Are you a David Bowie fan?
I mean, yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that I go out of my way.
Okay, all right.
But
if he comes up on the shuffle, I'll listen to it, sure.
Not due to a dislike of Bowie.
Sure.
Simply, perhaps, and regrettably, due to my age, which, I don't know. Maybe I should be listening to more Bowie.
Don't let that stop you. Everybody's going to tell you.
And I never do let it stop me.
Okay, good. And plus, you...
loved him in Twin Peaks.
Here's an old man. Yeah, there you go. You and your generation have access to whatever you want. You don't have to go to a record store and track it down. So
Spotify.
People are going to tell you to start with the Berlin stuff, but you can't. You got to work your way up to that, So,
Heard. Okay.
Ziggy Stardust, I mean, obviously. Hunky Dory is like where it really starts to take off for him, and he starts to really, form the sound that you'd expect. But he's got a lot of different sounds. Young Americans for the Blue-Eyed Soul thing.
Yes, chef.
Let's Dance. It's trashy pop, but he was, a master at trashy pop. And then, of course, Heathen or Black Star, his last album for late period Bowie. That's a really great one too. And then you do the Berlin stuff.
The more that you say, I'm really lacking in Bowie knowledge and listening.
So many albums.
Because usually my friends are like, stop playing dad rock to me.
Sure.
So it's very shocking.
You guys don't like Styx?
Don't play more Bowie?
Yeah. Well, anyway, they're all there available for you in the cloud. What did you think about this episode? Speaking of traveling through time.
Yeah. I liked it. There were parts that I liked a lot, and there were parts that I felt like I was sitting through.
Yeah.
Our man, now I don't even know his name. I'm very sleepy.
Rayner, the new guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not getting along with him.
Yeah.
And I don't find that he has, and I know that the point is that he's not getting along with the crew.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's still a type of chemistry that I'm not really feeling. Like I would have loved, like a thought I had while I was watching this episode, I think it was one of the scenes with all three of them together. Mm-hmm. I would have loved for this to be more tense and for her to be sort of you have this new first officer, you don't know it, you don't know that man. Yeah. That man's a stranger.
Yeah.
I would have loved for it to be more tense and to have climbed to a bit more of a head in a fight and for her to be like, why are you being an asshole? I need your help. Yeah. Look at where we are. Yeah.
Do you think the show is afraid of that kind of tension? Because
of conflict? I don't think so.
Well, the first season was radically different because it was, conceived and designed by somebody who, did not continue with the show. And so Michael Burnham is in a prison jumpsuit. Their captain is evil. They've got a monster in the basement that tears a lady's face off. There's all this like tension, and then the show pivots and literally brings family in the form of Spock. But because the crew becomes a family, more than any other crew has.
Yeah.
And I get I agree with you that the concept of this episode is fine. The execution in certain parts leaves me really cold because it feels mathematical to me. Introducing a character like Rayner, who's like, I'm the gruff, asshole, excuse my language, and you guys are all a family, and so I don't fit. We've had assholes on the show before. Jet Reno's an asshole. Paul Stamets points out in this episode that he used to be an asshole.
I did like that joke. I did think that was very funny.
Yeah, a little bit continuity. And
I'm grumpy, and everyone needs to leave me alone.
And Michael was the ultimate asshole. They even broke Giorgio, evil Giorgio. She was is like a fun mom character now. And so he's just latest in a long line. And they want to do this again and emphasize this. But you can already see, I can see 6 episodes in the future where he'll just be like, you did a pretty good job, kid. She's like, oh, well, look, from you, that means a lot, You kind of know where it's going.
You told me that you loved the curves on that starship.
Right. Yeah, they really planted and paid that off really fast. I just got done praising filler episodes, and now I'm going to say I really hated this as a filler episode. It's such a filler episode that it literally starts 15 hours earlier. And it's like, that's a thing that a lot of shows do, but usually it's like a character's like, I don't know how we're going to get out of this 72 hours earlier, and then we go back and we find out how they got there in the first place. This episode starts in its own past. And it's like, oh, you mean like at the beginning, like episodes start, like the way time moves? And it becomes clear that they mean 15 hours before the conclusion of the episode before. But it's like, but that doesn't make it. That means I have to watch them like in sequence. I have to go from the end of the last one to the beginning of this for it to be 15 hours before. Why do that? Like, we understand what's going on. Or put that at the end. That's the sting at the end of your last episode. We see the spider and then we flash back and then we go, oh, don't worry. So anyway, that's a criticism. Speaking of Mock and Lolly, that's better. Maul and Locke.
I forgot they were even in this episode.
I think we had it backwards, or I had it backwards. I think that she's like, he's the, I don't know about this. And she's the one who's like, yeah, thrill kill. And she'll end up like offing him or something like that.
You think? Oh my God. I just started Cowboy Bebop.
Oh.
The original.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. No, I'm bated breath.
There's like in the first episode there's like a who's the Bonnie and Clyde
right
type thing. Can
Bonnie
I spoil
and
the first episode?
People haven't seen the first episode of Cowboy Bebop. Yeah, go ahead.
And Bonnie shoots Clyde.
Right. Yeah.
Coincidence? I think not.
But that's more she's shooting him because he's out of control. So if we apply, and I like what you're saying.
But they were going to fail anyway. You know what I mean?
Right, but if we apply your theory to the show, then she will go out of control, and Locke will be the one that she's like, blam, and she falls down, and behind her, Locke's like, she took it too far. A book?
Yeah,
Book's like, I gotta take her out.
Looks like my god stepsister.
Didn't we kind of, what are you doing, stepsister? Didn't we kind of do that like last year though, or last season? Because it was basically a character who just comes in and is like, I'm the main character of the show now. Whatever, Torin or whatever his name was.
To Book and the actor, love him. I think he did a great job. Why is he still here?
Yeah, I agree. Because, Michael Burnham needs to be a character that has a love interest and has somebody that she's arguing with and friends.
Do you think that's why? Are they going to get back together?
Yeah. Oh, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they won't. Could be.
Well, I hope not.
Well, let's talk about it because in this episode, we're doing not exactly a time loop. You know, they're on the ship at different points in its history and its future. And of course, Farscape did it first. Actually, Farscape did it before Voyager did it, and I'll get to that. There's the Farscape episode, Through the Looking Glass, where the ship gets stuck in Starburst, and then it's divided into 3 different dimensions that the characters must keep traveling through. There's also an episode called Unrealized Reality, where the ship is split between 3 alternate time periods, and they have to go through them all. There's also a Farscape episode called My 3 Crichtons, where the main character is split into 3 time-divided versions of himself, a caveman version, a regular version, and then a future big brain version. So
that's what it's like having ADHD.
Farscape kind of, yeah. Well, anyway, Farscape, no comment. Farscape repeated themselves, but they always variated on the theme. And then, of course, there's a Voyager episode called Relativity, where I don't know if you remember this one. Janeway and Seven of Nine get pulled out of time by the time cops, and then they end up having to go back to Voyager, like when it was in dry dock still, and then at different points, like in Voyager's timeline. So
that's so bizarre. I don't remember that at all.
But you do remember All Good Things, the OG TNG episode where Captain Picard is on the Enterprise in 3 different time periods. So this is something that Trek does, and that's fine.
I mean, a sci-fi show, you got to do a time loop episode. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. I don't think that this compares super favorably to their first season time travel episode or time loop episode.
Can you hear the cat?
A little bit.
Okay.
Ripley also doesn't like it. If that's Ripley, which cat is that?
This is Indy. This was mine.
Oh, Indy. Okay.
Indiana Jones.
But as an MCU fan, we can forget all that shit because they're just doing Avengers Endgame, aren't they? The characters are traveling back to previous seasons of the MCU, and there's even a scene where a character, Michael Burnham, meets a character that they are now in the present separated from, and has an emotional but regretful discussion with them that gives them the power to go on, just like Thor does when he goes back to Thor the Dark World and talks to Freya while Rocket Raccoon gets the goo out of Jane Foster. So
that's a good read.
They're just doing Avengers Endgame, which is fine. That's a good structure. But the problem is that, and specifically focusing on that scene where Michael sees Book, who, speaking of which, is looking pretty good.
Absolutely jacked. That man didn't drink water for 3 days.
That's right. He was just getting ready. Just say cut, please. But the reason that scene fell flat for me is because it didn't change anything in the same way that like that Thor scene did. In that Thor scene, Thor is like, he's Lebowski Thor. He's crashing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's going along. He thinks he has nothing to add to this Enterprise. And he meets his mom. It's like the lowest point. He meets this person he misses so much. But she talks to him. And he realizes that there's, it's worth fighting for and that he has worth. And he's ready to go back up. And it's just a little thing. It's a fun button on the scene. But he's like, he calls the hammer back and he realizes, I can do it. I'm still worthy. And of course, that hammer becomes very important later on in the resolution of the film. So it like serves a mechanical plot purpose and it serves an important character arc purpose. And this was more just, that would be tough. That would be tough if you were broken up with somebody and you somehow met them and they were still in love with you. But they don't do, in fact, she walks out of the scene like, and in the next scene, she comes out of the ladder and she's like, you guys ready to do the thing? Or are we going to do the time bug?
No,
it has no effect at all. So it's just kind of a disappointing missed opportunity.
But she is also already used to seeing Book. Like, she sees Book pretty frequently.
That's true.
Anyway, so
that's true. He's not really even that removed. It could have just been a scene that was rewritten that would have taken place in the present. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. So why is he on the show then? Yeah.
I don't know.
It's all for Grudge. We just want Grudge. He comes with the package. It's a package deal. Too. Yeah.
I do think that it's because they're going to have some kind of redemption. And I wish that they wouldn't. I'm sure there must be people who love Book and There's a lot. The cat's doing a lot.
Great.
But for me, I would like, and maybe I'm just being jaded, I'm like, I would like one female protagonist to end the series not having a man with her.
Yeah.
Just let her do her thing. Which, I mean, you know, maybe that's an unfair criticism to make of Star Trek. I feel like they're not.
Well, there's at least in original at this point, what do you call it? 90s and 2000s Star Trek. It's light on that, right? The captain's usually married to the ship. I think
well, yeah,
really
that's
only
like that's not maybe a super fair criticism to make of Star Trek, because I feel like they usually aren't too like bad with like forcing female characters to like end up with like they can't end a storyline without being married or something, or marrying them off and having them leave the ship or whatever. But
yeah. No, I don't think that she'll like get married and quit the service. That's not going to happen. But it is interesting to have him there still and have her doing her job, but like pining and having this kind of element of it. I don't expect her to just shoot him out of an airlock, but then again, everybody's favorite Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, literally has a guy leaving, a wife and son behind, and then the son, looking out the window like, oh boy, I miss my dad. So, all right, new topic, an important topic, a topic that I think just last week or maybe the week before, I asked Santa for something, and I got it. We got a return to the world or the timeline of Calypso. And I don't know how to feel about it, because, clearly this wasn't the original intention, because that writer is also not on the show anymore. But we've kind of made we've stuck the Calypso timeline onto our timeline, saying, boy, that would be bad, wouldn't it, if everybody died and the ship was all alone by itself. And so this is the fate that we're trying to avoid. What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm still blown away by your comparison to Avengers Endgame. Like,
I knew that would get you.
And there's only one way to win.
Yeah, right.
But I was shocked for them to turn it around and be like, oh, remember this little short trek? That was actually because Maul and Locke, or whatever the names are, literally destroyed the Federation.
I don't think they're doing that. I think that they are, and I can't remember if we talked about this before, but I think they are just they're anticipating the internet comments. And so they're wrapping it up, not because somebody had a real brainwave and thought, oh, it would be the perfect thing to put that in there. I think they're just going, we want to make sure that people are satisfied, all the things are answered. In fact, we could probably brainstorm all the sort of open-ended questions left. I think that's one of the reasons that they brought Arium back, even though very odd.
Strange, right?
The way to.
Hang on, I have to close the door before the cat comes back.
Okay. But having Arium back was like cool, but so she basically, it was the scene that you always do, and they had this scene, they repeated this a couple times, but it's the scene where you meet a double of yourself or whatever, and you go, no, you've got a birthmark on your left eye, you wanted a Barbie doll when you were a little girl, you're doing that, but her thing for her is like, oh, you die in 2 years, and Arium's like, I love dying.
Why would that convince?
I know, right? I know.
And I was like, when does Control? Because didn't Control take her over also? So
oh my God.
When does Control get inside of her?
That's a quiz that I would not pass. Yeah, at some point, it's after it gets on the ship because she gets the red eyes, but it's close to her demise, I think. So
yeah, maybe after this.
Arium,
but that's needed to have her
get
be
McAfee
like,
virus software.
Huh?
Get a better firewall. Get Windows Defender. Yeah.
For her to be like, I would sacrifice myself. She's right. Is like crazy.
And it's all part of the whole. They're doing the time thing at first, where they're like, oh, careful, Marty, you can't run into yourself because you'll turn into goo or whatever. But then about halfway through, Stamets goes, oh, none of this matters because, like, the time bug will decide what stays and what doesn't, so we can do whatever. And it's like, all right, I guess if you change the rules in the middle of the game, then it's easy to win. So I just would have liked a little more consistency in my time travel stories. Um, do you think that the it's at a random thought. It's great to see Tig Notaro. Didn't know she was a badass, and also we have a scene where it's karate time, and so Burnham and Rayner kick the crap out of a bunch of guys. Do you get the idea that like everybody in Starfleet has like mad MMA skills? Like, do you think Picard is good at karate?
Sometimes, yeah. And then I think about like, if I were on that ship, like, and I feel like you take Starfleet, you go to Starfleet Academy, you're in these different tracks. But what if you're on the track where like you take one requirement, one like
everybody has the kung fu
elective a year, and you're like, but I took that requirement sophomore year. I don't remember how to do the punch.
Right? Yeah. 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 Characters are always saying like, I'm a little ways out from my sophomore class on warp field dynamics. Can you explain that different? Yeah. But just like one character that's maybe not, because even like Nurse Chapel, who is, we still don't really get it, but she's like a civilian contractor that works with Starfleet. Like she's like,
yeah,
I was in the war. All right, great.
I also feel like the bridge crew are like the best of the best, right?
Yeah. Well, that's
so
true.
Maybe they are just like people who are like, someday someone is going to beam onto this bridge, and it will behoove me to be able to lay them out.
The way we run this ship. Yeah, these characters, they've been through a lot at this point. So what did you think about, so I thought it was cool, the Michael versus Michael thing. Although I did it first in my Star Trek fanfic that I wrote a long time ago. But having the Michael versus Michael thing, Star Trek, you got to do that. Have your character meet themselves. What did you think about the way that, and I assume that this is what they were doing, setting up because we talked about a while ago about the theme is redemption again, this year. It's like people coming back from something, Rayner proving himself, Book redeeming himself. And then we don't have that with Michael because has status now, but we can bring the old Michael back and then we can see how much that she's changed. Like, did you think that was a good sort of juxtaposition to set up with old short hair Michael?
I did. I was surprised that they're doing it so early in this season. Like, I would have expected an episode like this where we're kind of reminiscing on like another mystery to solve, coming at maybe like an episode 6.
Yeah.
At the earliest.
Yeah.
But I loved, because I forgot how like feral she was, right?
yeah.
Like she got in that elevator and she was ready to fight, and I kind of forgot that like she really has changed so much. And to think about her in that first season, after she mutinied and then was reinstated on the ship, and nobody trusted her. Like, it's crazy. I did think it was maybe a little heavy-handed for her to be like, nice try, because they would never give a mutineer her captain's pips. So I know you're lying. It's like, oh, we know that you're a kicked puppy. Like, it's gonna be okay. But I loved it. I thought that Sonequa did a really good job at acting both sides. And I thought the special effects were amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The way they can pull that off now, where, it's not like William Shatner is fighting some other guy who's, much more trim than William Shatner and just clearly wearing a wig. Which one's wearing a wig? But
the toupee.
Yeah, I did. It was strange to recognize. Season 1 Burnham, and she's like, I think that she's a good enough actress
specialist Burnham,
to get back into that mindset. But again, it was just, it didn't change anything that she did. She basically was just like, oh yeah, I was kind of feral back then. All right, you're done. You're kind of out of it. And she comes back later, but then that's Raynor's moment to talk her down. I said this at the beginning, but again, it's like I can see what they're doing, and that they're putting they know what the math is, and they're putting all the scenes in the right place. And now it's time for a speech about this, and now it's time for these characters to do this. But it's just not. It feels kind of like there's no danger. And
yeah, it feels a little, something isn't quite clicking. It feels a little clunky. Like, I totally agree that I was like, yeah, and if this were working with Rayner and his like chemistry with Burnham and the crew, this would be great if he then had to talk down an even angrier like Michael Burnham.
Right, yeah, right? He fights with like the calm, refined one, in season 5, and now he's got to talk to the feral one. Yeah. Yeah, again, and we're calling it out. Like, I think they know. I think it's all there, but it's just not. I don't know. It's just not dressed up the right way. You mentioned at the beginning. I'm not sure the word that you used. The beginning of the show, the threat or like the tension. It is kind of weirdly missing. Yeah, the chemistry is sort of is weirdly missing. But it's one episode out of. They have made 100, haven't they? 10, 5. No, I guess not. But whatever it is, close. So yeah, I mean, I can recognize that they worked hard on this, but this is the opposite of what I like in Trek and these kind of episodes, where it's like, let's stop and talk about the time bug and what we got to do. And hey, I read a lot of Wikipedia and Memory Alpha, so I know about Minkowski diagrams, and it's like, no, I get it. You're very smart. It's, but like, how does this affect the characters? And they kind of go into it, going, we got to be good at what we do, and at the end of it, they're like, we got to be good at what we do, and nothing really changes. So, but there's clues to find still, and crazy space Bonnie and Clyde are out there. It is so Bonnie and Clyde. Will they end like Bonnie and Clyde then? The shuttlecraft driving by, just hose them down.
I mean. Yes. Right.
But that's what happened last season. The bad guy was like, I feel bad about this, but I'm going to blow up and die. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Locke will take her out and then go back, and he'll be like, I'm so sorry. Here's the key to the last
bomb
key
that's planted in somebody, but you better be quick.
Yeah.
Plus, quick, only somebody with tardigrade DNA can get through our time key.
See, and also they're kind of they're tripping over their own feet, in my opinion, because this idea of these two characters who were in a different space, like when this thing happened, or weren't on the ship technically, aren't affected by it. That's neat. And then it's neat that like there's a time fluctuation, but we've established that doesn't affect Stamets because he's got water bear DNA or whatever. But then you've got like they're doing the one thing and and it affects them the same way. Shouldn't it like maybe Stamets is dying or something, or they're dying, or like, do you know what I mean? It's like, it all works out. So there's just 3 characters there, and it's like, all right, well, whatever. Why remember all these things and keep the continuity if it's not interesting? So I wanted to mention, and we talked about this, or maybe we've never talked about this. Since they didn't know when they were shooting that it would be the last season. And so they got extra dispensation after they had wrapped the last episode to go back and kind of like shoot some more, closure scenes. So
that's crazy.
I wonder how that will affect the ending if they were going to do like a big,
so
they get shot or Book dies or whatever it is. Maybe they will end up changing what they wanted to happen. Like maybe Book would have died or wouldn't have died or something like that.
So, but then do you think they're going to like beef it if they wrote and shot the whole season without knowing it was going to be the last one?
Well, I think that
the ending?
They went back. Yeah, I think they went back and Lord of the Rings did. I think they're going to add a couple endings. But okay. What I'm saying is whatever they had in mind, they might have had like a second thought about and went, let's end up actually cutting what we did and then we'll add something else. I don't know.
Deleted scene where Book dies, deleted scene where Locke kills Saru.
Right,
deleted scene there.
Yeah, and then Ariam comes
also,
back
as Saru.
We have Ariam the White comes back, and And Saru has to sail to the
That would be crazy.
the
Ariam's
Undying
like, I
Lands.
actually lived because of what you told me.
I am Ariam the White now.
And I've been hiding. Zora is Ariam. It's been Ariam the whole time.
Yeah, right. And I have returned to you at the turn of the tide. Anything else? Anything else that you can think of to talk about in this episode?
No, I mean, it's just funny, the whole thing, and I think this is just sort of what we've been saying the whole time that we've been talking. On paper, love this episode.
Yeah.
On paper, for me, I don't know about you, no brainer. Love this episode. Time loop, you're joking. Do it again next episode. I won't be tired of it.
Yeah, just play the same episode. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I guess I thought it was a little weak. I suppose it's what? It's the third or fourth?
It's the fourth episode, yeah.
Whew. So I'm sure that episode 5 will be some kind of middle season, something exciting will happen, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, that would be the structure. I think that, so last week was, oh my God, what happened last week? Janal. We did a Trill thing.
Yeah.
Then we had we're on a forest planet adventure, and before that we did Time Loop this time. They might be trying to touch all the Star Trek bases before they wrap this up. That's kind of like my theory. So we'll see if the next episode is called Mirrors. Maybe we go back to the Mirrors.
Like visiting diplomat dinner party episode then.
Yeah, or like shuttlecraft accident.
Shuttlecraft accident.
And then Q comes back and messes everything up. Yeah.
Where is Alien World Murder Mystery?
I think they're batting for the cycle. I think that's my theory of what they're doing as they close this out. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Well, that's pretty much it for me. I totally agree with you that it's the exact box of what I want. And you open it up and it's like, oh, it's not. It's kind of different than what I wanted.
It's not quite. How come there's a piece missing? When you get a puzzle from Goodwill.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, there's
Goodwill
just
puzzle.
one
That's
piece
perfect.
missing.
That's perfect.
It's perfect. And it's like, it would have been better if there was 2 pieces missing, because then you're like, oh, well, it's a puzzle from Goodwill, but one piece missing is like, why?
One of Princess Diana's eyes are missing, and it looks really weird. Well, that's it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. If you like what you hear on the show, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when our shows come out. You can tweet to us on the show using the hashtag Discoverage, or email us with comments at EISTPOD@gmail.com. And while you're on the internet, head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our Enterprising Individual show feed. And if you like the show, as always, tell a friend about it. Discoverage will return next week on February. That's not February. It's April 25th at 8 p.m. for the 5th episode of Discovery's 5th season. It's an episode entitled Mirrors, and that's why I think maybe the Mirror Universe is coming back. We're going to touch them all on the way out, but we'll see what happens. We don't know anything about the episode, but we'll be here next Thursday to cover it. We're going live once again at 8 p.m. Central, so join us then. And don't forget to hit the heart and the bell icon on the video on Twitch, or the like and subscribe button below the video on YouTube to get notified when we're live and broadcasting. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about tonight's episode of Discovery. Remind people where they can find you online.
Thank you. They can follow me at Gondor Gold, and they should keep listening here. If luck is on my side, I'll have a little announcement to make about Generations Geek pretty soon.
Great.
A fun little special guest, maybe.
Okay. All right.
But we'll see.
That's a tease of a tease.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll just have to keep listening to Discoverage.
Okay. All right.
I know.
Well, looking forward to that good news. You can find me at Twitter. It's still Twitter, whatever. At KA1IBAN. Yeah, whatever it's called. XYZ. And that is it for our show tonight. Thanks for listening, and we are signing off. This is Aaron for Ella saying, live long and prosper.